Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Amelia Wilson. I'll be your facilitator for today's webinar, Leadership in Christian Education. Just having a couple of people more join us, which is great to see people dialing in from around the country. And we might just get started with some introductions and then people can join in the next couple of minutes, which will be really good. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we kick off with today's content. If you do have any questions at all, the webinar box on the right-hand side of your screen has a questions toolbar. If you have a question for Dr. Peter Stiles or for myself throughout the session, please just pop that question in there and we'll come through to those questions at the end of the session. All of the attendees are currently muted, so that is the only way that you'll be able to ask a question, to pop it in that chat box. We really look forward to hearing what you have to say and what your thoughts are about the session today. The session is recorded, so we'll be able to send that around to you to share with your colleagues and peers later on, which is a good opportunity for anyone that you know that's missed out on attending today. All right, so we're going to have about 30 minutes or so of talking about leadership in Christian education, a little bit about Excelsia College, and a little bit about our brand new Master of Education, followed by that question and answer session. So really keen to hear what everybody wants to know. So before we kick off, just a few bits of introduction. So as I said, my name is Amelia. I'm the Partnerships Manager for Excelsia College Online. So that means I work with organisations, schools, industry groups, and so on to promote education opportunities for people like teachers, for principals to work with teachers for leadership development opportunities for staff, that type of thing. And I do have my very esteemed colleague, Dr. Peter Stiles, here today as our guest speaker. Peter Stiles is the acting head of education here at Excelsia College. He's trained as a primary teacher at Armidale Teachers College and he's taken degrees in English and education as well. Peter completed his PhD in 1995 at the University of Glasgow. He's a published academic with several academic and creative works, with extensive experience teaching in primary, secondary and tertiary settings, and he's also held some very senior roles in a number of different schools. So we're really excited to have Peter here to talk through some thoughts about leadership in Christian education and give you a bit more insight into Excelsia College and what it is that we do. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks, Amelia.
So I might hand over to you, Peter, to talk about Excelsia College and leadership, if I may.
Yes, certainly, Amelia. Thanks for your kind words. I really appreciate it. And welcome, everyone. I hope you benefit from this webinar that we're conducting now. So just a little bit about Excelsia College. So Excelsia College is one of a number of higher education providers with a Christian foundation throughout Australia. But Excelsia College has had a very long history. It was established in 1983 and was formerly known as the Wesley Institute. And has always had a good reputation for providing degrees in, particularly in the performing arts initially, in dance and drama, and but it gradually built up a reputation also as a place for teacher training. And also it has counselling as well, and more recently we now have degrees in business as well. It's becoming a stronger and stronger institution now, offering degrees right up to doctoral level. So we have a lot of strings to our bow. We're now a self-accrediting institution as well, which is a big plus. One of the things you'd probably be interested to know about Excelsia is that it has a close relationship with Indiana Wesleyan University, which is one of the largest Christian universities in the US. And if you get the journal Christianity Today, they usually have a full-page advertisement for Indiana Wesleyan, or IWU as it's often known, in Christianity Today. So we're pleased that we have that relationship. It's only of recent years that we've had that relationship with iWoo, but it's already proving to be quite a profitable thing for us to do. Profitable in the sense of it gives us contacts and relationships that we wouldn't normally have otherwise. So it's a great place to work. It's a very friendly, warm, open, supportive environment with a strong Christian foundation, and it's a pleasure to work here at Excelsia College. Our mission, our focus is certainly on having a Christian worldview embedded in everything that we do, so that we approach everything through the eyes of our Christian faith, wanting to integrate faith and knowledge in a meaningful way in everything that we do here. It's a very, as I said, it's a very good place. I like it because we put a very strong emphasis on the personal relationship we have with the student body, and I think that's one of the standout features of it, that you will find here at Excelsia that you will get much more individualized attention than you will in many other institutions. It's a smallish institution, but growing, and that is really a strength. So the staff-student ratio is quite low. And so even though students are working online for their Master of Education degree, you'll find that you'll have a lot of access to your lecturers. If you enroll in this degree, you'll have good access to your lecturers, all of whom will be have a strong Christ-centered, faith-based approach to what they're doing. We have a lovely campus here in Macquarie Park, just near Macquarie University. So if you ever want to drop in here, you're very welcome. There's plenty of parking, and you could drop in and have a look around. Because we do, even though students doing the MEd are doing it online, we do our drama and music courses are offered face-to-face, so there would be students here at any one time, which creates a nicer atmosphere. Now, I know, though, in your case, you're widely distributed right across the country, and so if you're doing the course, you'll be doing it online, and Amelia's going to talk a bit more about that in a moment. But there are a lot of benefits in online education, especially if you're already busy professionals working in a school. But you don't need to feel remote or out of touch when you're an online student, because we have built into our degree mechanisms for making sure that doesn't occur, that we are going to look after you and provide you what you need to become, to enhance your skills as a teacher. So that's a little bit about Excelsia. It's, as I said, it's a great place to work. It's a good place to be a student and a staff member, faculty member, and we try really hard to keep abreast of developments in education, particularly in Christian education. And just in the last few weeks, we've had Dr. Beth Green here from the Cardis Institute in Canada, just to give you an example. And she would be considered, Beth Green, you can Google her and find out more details. She would be considered one of the top people in Christian education in the world, in the Western world anyway. So you could check on her, Beth Green, and you'll find out more about her, what a stunning reputation she has. And she's now establishing a good link with us here at Excelsia. We have other faculty, visiting faculty from other institutions coming as well to visit us here at Excelsia. So that's probably enough about Excelsia College itself. It doesn't have, it's interdenominational in nature, so people come from all Christian faith backgrounds, and we have students who predominantly from Protestant backgrounds probably, but we have quite a number of Catholic people and people from Orthodox backgrounds coming as students to us as well. And most people come and enjoy the fact that we have strong foundational values are quite are Christian and conservative, reasonably conservative, and people like that across the spectrum. So you won't find some of the antipathy that you'll sometimes find when you go as a Christian to a secular university, there will be none of that expressed here in our courses or in the work that we do. You'll find this a sympathetic, conducive environment for you as a Christian, and that we feel is good. So now, I was asked by Amelia if I could do talk a little bit about leadership in Christian education, which is our next topic for this afternoon. And so I just thought I'd run through some of the points that you're probably now seeing on the screen. And they are things that I've drawn really principally from my own experience. As I've been in teaching, I've been in education for a very long time now, in a whole lot of range of contexts. As Amelia said, I've been a primary teacher, taught from K to 6 in primary all years, taught in a one-teacher school at one stage. I've taught from 7 to 12 in high schools in private and state, Christian and secular state, and I've been a head of department in a couple of schools and director of studies, head of middle school in one school, director of human resources in another. So I've had a variety of experience, and I think that's given me a fair insight into what the basic principles of leadership in Christian education are, and I've done quite a bit of reading in this area as well. But this afternoon I'm really reflecting quite a lot on my own experience. So let's just quickly run through these things. I think the thing that comes to the top of the list for me is modelling personal integrity at all times, and that of course has been an issue that's been very much in the press recently with certain senior figures in politics who are meant to represent personal integrity but don't at all times. And I can remember a very good example of that from when I was at school, a teacher who, even though he was a good teacher, outside the classroom, his personal life was just in chaos, and it certainly didn't present a good image of what it is to be a professional. So I think personal integrity, especially in a Christian sense, is a really important thing to have and to maintain, both within the classroom and outside the classroom. And I'm sure you'd all agree with that. The second thing I'd say is, and I've learned this from working with some very eminent educators through the decades, putting the students and colleagues, put your students and colleagues first. And that's sometimes a difficult task, but it's important to remember that schools and institutions are about the students and the colleagues rather than the administrivia, which is often becomes a dominant feature of school life. I worked with Rod West at Trinity Grammar School. He was probably the best educator I've ever worked with. He would spend the whole day with the students and his colleagues out and about and try and do most of his administrative work after the close of school at the end of the day. And that seemed to work well for him, and it was certainly brought him an incredible amount of credit. I went to his funeral last year. Unusual, he had 3,000 people at his funeral at the school, and because he was so well loved and respected because of the way he treated people and treated his students particularly, gave them strong individual attention. I think it's important. Another thing he modelled was being visible in the role that he adopted as principal, and I think that that's something I'd encourage you to do. High visibility in whatever role you have is really, really important, to show that you're there, to be on the football field, to do whatever's needed to show that you're just in the community, one of them, and you're prepared to participate in every aspect of school life or institutional life. So I've tried to adopt that. It's not always easy, I know, and when I was at Trinity Grammar School, I used to do it all as well, and take a cricket team, do whatever was needed to show the boys that I was with them. And I think that's a mark of leadership when you get in and roll up your sleeves and just get in and do things. So being visible, I think, is really important. I think it's really important that you treat people as individuals, treat everyone as individuals, and give people undivided attention when you're speaking to them. I've noticed this with a couple of people. One colleague, I won't remain nameless, who I work with, whenever you were talking to him, he was quite senior, he was a headmaster, whenever you were talking to him, he was always looking past you to somebody, looking as if he wanted to talk to somebody else, which doesn't create a good impression. So I think it's the mark of a committed Christian that when they talk to people, they give people their undivided attention and really focus on that individual and show them love and concern. So that's another thing I would urge. Now, the next thing is something I've learned, that good leaders tend to be people who are consistent in their behaviour. People that are subject to huge fluctuations in behaviour generally don't become good leaders. And I've noticed this in some of the headmasters and senior people in the tertiary realm who I respect, is that they're able to maintain this equilibrium and consistency in whatever context they're placed in. And I think that's important. And I think it's just as important the way you respond to a situation as much as the situation itself. The way you respond demonstrates a lot about you as a person, and it's certainly in a leadership position that demonstrates a lot. If you can remain consistent and push through the difficult moments as well as the good moments with consistent, loving nature, I think that's really important. The next point I want to make is, I think, take the long view, be proactive as well as reactive. A lot of leaders are purely reactive. They're just dealing with what comes up on the day, but I think it's important that you take the long view and that you have plans and you work towards things in the future. So you're going to be the person that has the global perspective, that has the view of what needs to be done in the medium to long term as well as the short term. So I think that's another aspect of good leadership that I'd encourage. I think it's really important next to develop a metacognitive disposition. This is something I stress a lot with my students here at Excelsia, that always when you're in the classroom and thinking about what you're doing, why you do what you do, why am I doing this, why am I doing this, could I do this better? But to draw back enough to be able to reflect on what you're doing and to think it through. Why am I doing this? Why am I engaged in this particular approach to things? Is there a better way I could organise my time? Is there a better way that I could do this in the classroom? Better pedagogical practices that I could adopt than this? Because we all fall into habits and sometimes we don't question what we do. And I suppose that's metacognitive disposition is just as important in terms of personal demeanour and behaviour as well as your actions as well. The next thing I want to stress is in terms of Christian leadership is always looking to the best in your students and colleagues. I think it's really important as a Christian that you affirm people all the time. I think that's what Jesus would do. He would always look for the best in students, in people he mixed with, and whether they were young or old, wealthy or poor, marginalised or at the centre of the action. He always found the best in people, and I think that's having the mind of Christ in these things is really important. So seek out the best. And I remember Rod West, again, being able to do this. He would be able to, even the child at the school who was seemingly insignificant, he would always be able to find something in that child that he could draw out and say, well done in that area. Whether it was, playing chess or public speaking or hospitality or whatever it happened to be. The next thing I'd say is, and this is quite important, I think, is the ability to make hard decisions. Now, that really depends a lot on your personality, but I think decision making is really necessary. You have to be able to do the hard crunching when it's necessary. Not always easy, depending on your personality type, to do that. Some people back away from that, but if you're going to be a leader, you have to be able to do that. You have to be able to make the hard decisions when they come along. So these are all points, I think, that came straight to mind when I started to think of, Amelia asked me about tips for effective leadership. Now, the next one you'll understand and recognise straight away, I'm sure, is the need to not be consumed by positional authority. It's really hard to not be caught up with the positional authority that you have, but I think, again, from a Christian point of view, it's best not to do that, to be overawed by it and to let your ego get out of control. Some people do that, and you've all, I'm sure, worked with people where that's happened, where people become arrogant or self-centered or bossy because of the positional authority they've got. But that sort of, again, it's the modeling Christ's behavior and servant leadership, I think, is really, really important. Lead in a discreet, quiet way, in the same way that God operates in our lives, quietly and discreetly. So I think not being overwhelmed by positional authority is really good. I've seen it in principals that get carried away with it, with who they are and what they're doing, and that's not a good thing. And of course, I think good leaders are also well-balanced people. So I would really work hard at establishing a good work-life balance. There's no way you should be so consumed by the work that you're doing that you don't have time for leisure and that you don't have time for your family. I think family has to come first. Wife, children, whatever it happens to be, they are your primary responsibility, and I think a good leader always demonstrates integrity within their own family life and integrity and a good life-work balance so that they can play as much as work in an effective way. So not always easy, I know, and I've said to teachers when I've worked with them before in schools, you should be able to, you should be an intact person when it comes to the end of your time here at this school. You should be able to walk away from it and not feel as though you've lost a huge chunk of your life because of that. You should be a person self-contained in that sense, not feel as though your life is your work. And then, which leads to the last point about being absolutely able constantly to maintain a capacity to leave a position of leadership when the time comes, because as much as we don't like the idea, no one's indispensable. And I've seen this before. When you leave a school, it's very it doesn't take long for the waters to close around you after you've left, and in a few years you'll hardly be remembered. So that's just the reality of the situation. So this happens, and I've seen it several times in myself and in other people, that we're not indispensable. So our place of leadership can be a temporary position. So these are just 12 points about leadership that I thought I might leave with you this afternoon, and hopefully you might be able to utilize them in some way. I don't know if they've been helpful to you, but I hope they've been helpful in some way. So Amelia, I might just pass over to you now.
Thanks so much, Peter. That was so insightful, and thanks for sharing a combination of your experience and research and knowledge in this field. I think there's a lot that we can all take, whether we be teachers or principals or sales and marketing professionals like me. So thank you very much for sharing that advice, and I do hope that the listeners have taken something useful from that. What we're actually finding is that a number of teachers and principals and people looking for that opportunity for growth in their leadership skills and to kind of find a framework for how to be a better leader in education are seeking out the opportunity to do postgraduate study and learn from people like yourself, Peter, about how to go about that and what the research kind of shows about leadership in education. So it's a perfect segue really to the Master of Education that we've recently launched. So thank you for sharing. To give the audience a little bit of an overview of our new Master of Education, I thought we just walk through a little bit about that degree. We're really excited about it here at Excelsia College because it's really, the Master of Education is a degree that helps educators who are looking to further their teaching practice and become even more the accomplished leaders in their field, and looking for that opportunity to grow their career and take on, whether it be head of department, deputy principal, principal, headmaster, or other roles in educational leadership. So that's sort of the audience that we're finding. And given that Excelsia College is a faith-based institution, the opportunity to take the Master of Education in a faith-based environment has been hugely beneficial. So we've got students who have come through into the program who've got experience in Christian schools, and they're extremely keen to continue that Christian emphasis in their continued learning journey. And then we've also had some teachers that have come through who are working in government and state schools who are Christians and really looking for that opportunity to apply their Christianity and leadership development at the same time. The really exciting thing about this Master of Education is that it's an accelerated online program. So for busy professionals, they're able to achieve that master's degree in around 16 months. We do have 6 intakes each year. So you can complete 6 of the 8 units in the first year and then 2 in the second year. And the next one starts in July, but we'll have students commencing with us in July, September, November, January, March and May. So we used to think of starting semesters in February or July, and if you had a holiday or a busy project at school, you really had to wait 6 months before you could come into a program like the Master of Education, whereas the 6 study periods really facilitates a much more student-friendly model when you look at postgraduate students who do typically work full-time. Students also find with the Master of Education that there are no on-campus commitments. So of course our students are more than welcome to come down to Macquarie Park and set foot on campus and see all the great facilities that we have at Excelsia, but there's absolutely no obligation to come on campus. There'll never be an on-campus exam or anything like that. And so you'll always be able to study at your own kind of convenient place and time throughout those 6 study periods every year. The Master of Education, as most people would be aware, is an 8-unit master's degree, and you do take that 1 unit at a time. All of the assessments are practical, skill-based, looking at how do you kind of utilise your experience in the classroom and apply that to the assessment. We do also offer 2 exciting specialisations in this degree. So the specialisations, the electives that you can choose, contribute to either a specialisation in leadership or a specialisation in teaching and learning. So for those people thinking they really want to sink their teeth into one of those, that's the specialisation opportunity for you. In terms of studying online, I thought I would also give you just a little bit more about how that actually looks. So in my experience, the first iteration of online learning often meant that you took an on-campus lecture and recorded it, and students were expected to download and consume that in a couple of hours at night and log in on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. for a webinar. And it really isn't that flexible when you look at a busy personal and work life to be able to have that time to sort of go through all of that hours of content at once. It's not the best way to do online learning. So with this degree, with students at the centre of what we're trying to achieve and that online accelerated model, what we've done is built a 100% online delivery, and the content is all designed for a student that's really busy. So you can jump in to the course on a mobile device on your way to school in the morning if you get public transport, and spend 10 minutes looking at a video or a bit of content about that particular week's topic. And you might have a little bit of time at morning tea or at lunch, and you might get 10 or 20 minutes done then. And then in the evening you might jump in and out, but you've got kids and dinner to cook, or you're out playing sport, or you've got a community group or something to be at. And so being able to jump in and out of the content is really what we've designed. And it's not that lecture that was delivered last year on campus, it's completely redesigned for an online delivery, which is really exciting. And like I said, we build for mobile first. So any device with an internet connection, even if you're lucky enough to be on holidays with your feet up on a sun lounge, you'll be able to log in and get some work done for your master's degree, which is a great opportunity. We also have a lot of networking opportunities within the learning environment, so you can go through and talk with other students. So as you're in there on that sun lounge on your holiday, you make a comment about the content, such as I also read in the textbook that this theory is applied here for such and such a reason, and I'm thinking of writing something about that for my assessment. What's everybody else doing? And you'll notice throughout the day that other students, as they log in, respond to your question and add to it. And you've really got that community opportunity without having to commit to 7 p.m. Wednesday every week. The other thing, just to sort of add to that, is really that the quality is equivalent but redesigned for an online delivery. So it's not a lesser version of an on-campus degree, it's just a different delivery that suits your life. So we're really excited about that. And finally, just wanted to also add for those people that are listening in that do work in a school, whether you're a school principal or a teacher or whatever your role is within the school, we are really, really committed to teacher development within schools. We'd love to see schools working with Excelsia College to really build that learning culture and have teachers studying together in groups and what have you, and really facilitate the link between what the Master of Education offers and what's going on in your school. So if you do have teachers in your school that are also thinking about study, please have a word to them about what it is that we're doing. We're even happy to run a session like this one just for your teachers. So reach out to me. My contact details are up there on the screen, amelia@online.excelsia.edu.au. Be absolutely happy, delighted in fact, to talk with your school about an opportunity to deliver a session just for your specific teachers. So we might see if there are any questions out there. If anyone did have a question, just utilise the toolbar on the right-hand side of your screen to pop in that question, whether you have a question about some of the content on leadership that Peter talked through, or whether you have a question about the degree or the online learning model. Love to hear from you. There's one coming through here. Is this Masters recognised like the Masters from the other universities? That's a great question. Did you want to respond to that one, Peter?
Yeah, no, there's no question about that. It's fully recognised. It's you'll find that degrees from Excelsia have academic credibility wherever you take them. If you're going to be a teacher here in any state in Australia, or if you go overseas, it's the same thing. And a lot of our graduates have taken their degrees and worked in, well, from personal experience, for example, in the UK, they've used degrees from Excelsia. There's been no problem. So they're fully accredited in that sense, fully recognised. It's not a problem.
Great, thanks. And thanks for that question, Susan. Got another question here for you, Peter. What do you consider to be best practice for managing conflicting situations while in a leadership position? Did you have some insight to share on that one?
Yeah. Conflicting situations can be, well, it doesn't need to be said, they can be really difficult things to deal with. But I actually think one of the most important things in conflicting situations is transparency, and to be upfront with whatever you're dealing with. So I've had this situation before where two people couldn't get on, and they were in the one school working together but just couldn't see eye to eye. Individually they came to me to speak to me about the situation, and ultimately I had to just say, look, have you actually sat down and talked to each other? Have you, you're only up the stairs from each other, or down the stairs. Have you actually sat down and talked about the situation, talked it through? And I find that often people don't talk directly. They will talk via someone else about a situation rather than confronting the person themselves. So I think it's really important to be upfront and direct about some issues in a loving sort of way. I think most issues can be resolved if you approach situations lovingly. I know that's not true of every situation, but I've found it works pretty much in every situation. Sometimes relationships take a while to work through, and I've had that situation too, where there's a bit of mistrust, or people are skeptical about certain things. But again, I think it's just a matter of time and pouring love into that situation, and most things can be solved in that sort of in a congenial sort of way if you work at them. I think I don't know if that's really answering the question, but anyway, that's kind of my basic mechanism for dealing with things, is to just be very direct and sit down with people. Thanks, Amelia.
Right, thanks. Thank you. Got another question here. What type of assessments are there in the Masters of Education?
Well, the normal sort of range of assessments is they're essays, they're short answer responses, things of that sort. It's a variety of assessments, but for every course there's two, which sometimes are broken into two parts. But some of them are shorter and some longer, but they're written responses, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Great. We've just got one other question here. Someone's interested to know, can you study more than one unit at a time? So that's to do with that accelerated model. We typically don't do that. The 6 units in a year, they are quite intensive 7-week units. And it wouldn't be in the student's interest to take 2 at the same time. So 1 per study period is the way that the model works, so that they can complete that master's in around 16 months while working full time. So it is just the 1 at a time. You can't do it faster than that.
No, I mean the carousel model is designed so that you do 1 at a time. It's unlike other degrees in that sense. And that short period, it's quite intense. So you would find it, I think anybody would find it really difficult to do more than 1 course at a time.
Yeah,
Certainly
indeed.
enough, 1 course is enough work to keep one quite busy.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet it is. All right. I think that's pretty much all the questions that we've got come through, but I'd like to thank all the attendees for their really thoughtful questions and for really taking the time to dial in today and learn a little bit more about Excelsia College and about your experience in leadership, Peter. It's really a delightful conversation,
Thanks,
so thank you.
Thanks, Amelia. That was great. And it's really love to meet you all at some point in the future, and hopefully you'll all take up the opportunity to pursue this degree. We'd love to have you on board. So thanks, Amelia, for organising it, and thank you to all of you for dialing in. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thanks so much, Peter. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye. Bye-bye.